Well, I figure that as long as we're here, we might as well stay busy and create and play music. It's why we're here. Well, I started painting in college, and after college I went to Europe and lived for 5 years, and I studied art and painting. And at a certain point, I was searching for religious values, and I became a Hindu for a while, and then I became a Buddhist. And when I became a Buddhist, I set off to India to try to find a teacher, and that affected my art. I finally decided I wanted to paint something within the relative framework of Buddhism. So I started painting thangkas around 1975. The word thangka actually in Tibetan means a rolled up scroll painting. And it's a rolled up scroll painting because the monks used to go around the countryside with their paintings rolled up and teach. So it was a very portable way. And thangkas basically are Tibetan sacred art. They're religious art, they're Buddhist art, and they're designed to be visual aids for meditation. Because in the Tibetan version of meditation, one of the things you do, or try to do, is to visualize yourself as the deity. There is no central God like we have in Christianity, but there are a lot of various deities with attributes of personality. Some have attributes of compassion, some have wisdom, and so forth. So you try to see yourself as that deity. The detail in the painting is part of the philosophy. The idea of the thangka is to make a kind of a perfection, a world that is enlightened, or a world that is totally transcendent. So if the painting were kind of slapdash and unfocused, then we wouldn't have that quality of clarity. So the thangka painting technique is in itself a kind of a meditation. Painting thangkas is a sacred practice, and it starts with a kind of an invocation and ends with a special kind of prayer. We can call it a contemplative art. We have to breathe correctly, and we have to concentrate, we have to have patience, and we practice slowly, and we try to practice every day like a meditation. So in this way, over a period of time, one gets better and better. The results are in the practice. It seems that as one goes through life, one goes through periods and stages. In one period, you're really interested in this, and then you move on to another period. And I never leave any of them behind. I kind of keep them going. Well, I've always been a musician ever since I was a young kid. I started playing the piano at about the age of 8, and then I took up the saxophone and the clarinet and the flute. And my whole high school and college career were involved in playing in big bands. I had an 18-piece big band. We used to play for all the dances, and it was lots of fun. Then I went off to Europe and had little jazz quartets and trios and quintets with saxophone, piano, bass, and drums, and so forth. And then that carried on to my tour of Australia, where I was there for 3 years. And when I came back to Oregon in the 60s, rock and roll had really taken over, and nobody was very interested in jazz saxophone players. And ever since then, I've been playing piano more than the saxophones and woodwinds. So I try to keep busy, and it seems that I have some bookings in local places. My favorite one is Hudson's at the Heathman Lodge in Vancouver. So calligraphy has always been one of my favorite pastimes, and part of my great pleasures in life is doing calligraphy. Calligraphy is Kali graphos, the Greek word which means beautiful writing. So since I have an interest in Western calligraphy, that carried over into an interest in Tibetan calligraphy. And the Tibetan calligraphy is really fascinating because it's based on an alphabet that was invented in the 8th century. The more recent calligraphic paintings that I've been doing got their start back east in a seminar I took about 4 years ago. And we did big brush painting, and it was pretty abstract. But we were doing, instead of just abstraction, we were doing gestures for heaven, earth, and man. And so I took those words, heaven, earth, and man, and started writing them in English. And I wrote them over and over again, and it developed into a series of paintings that were layered, that had many layers, black and white and colors and gold and so forth. And so they became kind of, on the surface, they look like abstractions, but they actually have a kind of mantric calligraphic meaning underneath. In some of the examples, like the two that you're looking at, which are based on the words love and gratitude, I start by writing love and gratitude, but there's so many layers that eventually the visual part of it totally disappears under the layers, and all you get is the rhythm and the energy of love and gratitude. You may not be able to see the words at all. It just totally disappears, but we're expecting that energy and that love and that gratitude to manifest itself in the art. The idea of whether the same expression occurs in music and in the art, I don't think so. I think that when I'm doing music, I'm doing music. And since the place where I'm playing music is usually a public place and I'm doing it for people, I'm addressing their specific needs. Whereas when I'm doing art, it's more personal, it's more private. I think I'm addressing my own spiritual needs. I feel very fortunate that my path has provided me with the time and the energy to practice both my music and my art. And I'm very grateful that I've lived to the ripe old age of 74, and I'm still doing it. And so I will continue as long as I can to paint and play music and to enjoy this kind of practice.